Welcome to the Business Focus podcast. Before we start, can we ask one thing? 74% of you that watch this channel frequently do not subscribe. If you've enjoyed our videos, please could you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the learning gets. Welcome to the Business Focus podcast. Jonathan Herps is the host of the Business Focus podcast. He is a strategic advisor, coach, and mentor to entrepreneurial business owners, CEOs, and senior executives. In this podcast, he chats with entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies.
Hello there again. My great pleasure today to introduce Amy-Renee Hovorka. I think I've got that pronunciation right, Amy-Renee. Amy-Renee is the founder and CEO of Proc Market. Is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah, Proc Market.
Great. So listen, why don't we start by a little bit of telling us a bit of your journey so far, what Proc Market is, and how long you've had this venture.
So Proc Market is actually a global marketplace for professionals in management consulting, engineering, and procurement to freelance to offer their services, but in a productized way, so with fixed price offerings.
Okay. So I assume this has come from some of your experience. I've noticed on your CV some time in Saudi as an example.
Yeah, so I did have some time in Saudi, and my background is in procurement, so developing scopes of work, tender documentations, rationalizing contracts that organizations have and doing it more strategic. I saved Caltex $100 million over 3 years, and that got me headhunted to Saudi Arabia to set up their procurement organization. And whilst there, I had the opportunity to renegotiate $1 billion supply chain contracts. So I've got some good wins in the background. But what this was an opportunity when I was working for the government, for Department of Education, and the way that they rewarded you for doing a good job was to give you more work. I kind of thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was somebody that I could just get to write me a scope of work and then I could manage it, or run the evaluation for me and I could manage it and get all of these pieces together. But it didn't exist. So I thought, all right, I will create it. And one of the foundations of procurement is contract management. So category management. Everything's in a category. And so I utilized the UNSPSC, United Nations Standard Products and Services Code, which has 157,000 subcategories, and put together a platform around that. Now, all the subcategories have pictures, so it's really easy to use, easy to navigate, which is important. But what it enables is you to identify, categorize, and segment skills in a way that hasn't been done before. So you can identify exactly the expert you want to work with.
Okay. So who do you see as your perfect client?
My perfect client, this has evolved actually, quite recently. So my perfect client is actually business savvy client who wants to, who realizes that they want to have a project done for management consulting or engineering or procurement, and they realize that they don't need to have somebody on site. They've adapted with COVID, and they realize that you can do it remotely. And then by doing it remotely, you can tap into all of this amazing expertise and skill that's overseas. So my perfect client is one that is quite savvy, wants to save money because we're offering low-cost country sourcing solutions and fixed prices. They want to have transparency in their pricing and their budget, so they're savvy and they are also cognizant of their budgets.
Do they tend to be government and large corporations, or what size businesses would you be looking at?
Well, it can be small to medium enterprises as well, because the way that we've actually priced things is to do it on a scale. So it's fixed prices, but it's fixed price based on the size of the organization. So if it's a smaller organization, like a SME, and they only have revenue up to 1 million or 10 million, then they actually will get a much lower cost or project than if it's a 20 million, 100 million, billion-dollar business.
Okay.
So we're trying to make it accessible for everyone.
Right. So when did you start the business?
I actually started the business we did a soft launch May last year.
Yep.
And it was from idea to soft launch in 6 weeks.
Great. So, okay, so I'm trying to remember where COVID was in May last year. Were we...
Towards the end.
Right.
Towards the end where everyone was going back to work, and I'm like, I don't want to go into the office that I've been working with these people. I don't want to travel into the city. At the time, I was like an hour and a half away from the city. And with the combination of having the idea of a freelance platform, it's like it just opened it up. COVID opened this up. It wouldn't have been possible without COVID.
So tell me how you my normal question here was of all the actions that you took during COVID, what has stuck with you? Maybe a bit of an adaptation. How do you actually manage the business, given that you've got a global client base and a global contractor base? How do you actually manage this thing?
So we manage it through curators. So all of the projects are actually curated. We have an industry curator in each of the industry verticals, which is at the top. There's 27 industry verticals and a curator in each of those. So you work with the curator and then they work with the freelancer to make sure that the project is delivered on time, of highest quality, also on budget. So it's also what that enables is because when you have a global workforce, it's very difficult to have it insured. But because we have the curators, it means that the projects are professional indemnity insured. Okay.
And so how do you manage it? What tools and apps do you use to wrangle all of this?
The platform that we created, Proc Market, it has a collaboration zone where you work together with the client and the freelancer, and the curator works in the team, and you share documents, you set up meetings in there, you can run video conferences straight from the platform, and you can share information. And so that's how we wrangle all the different pieces, and it enables you to know what time zone different people are in, so you can find the best time zone for meetings.
Right. Fabulous. So what does the future look like, and what do you see as your main challenges going?
The future looks amazing because I'm a very positive person. So no matter what happens, I'm a very positive person. The future does look amazing, and it's all about making sure that we keep on track with what we're doing. Now, this is a different message to a message that I put out previously, which was it was a global equalizer with everyone being paid the same, no matter what race, religion, gender, age, or location they were. I tried to change the world with this platform. And that was one of our challenges, was being a business, a small business, a startup, an entrepreneur. Making money wasn't enough for me. It was like I wanted to change the world. I wanted to have a global equalizer. I wanted to make it so the educated in each of the societies could contribute to the economic growth of their countries. But that being said, it meant that I wasn't making any money because companies couldn't recognize the value in using us. Why would they come to us if they're paying the same price for a high-level consulting company? Why would they come to us, where the risks of having that remote working is slightly riskier than a person on the ground, boots on the ground? So I had to realign that thinking. So that's been our greatest challenge, really, the founder. The founder has been our greatest challenge. And that we've just done that pivoting, and we've got this focus now that we're going to be a low cost solution, and the future does look bright with that possibility.
Okay, interesting. I mean, certainly with my clients, and I coach founder CEOs. That's what I do. More often than not, the founder is the block, and it's I spend an enormous amount of time, coaching my client, my founder CEO clients about how to unblock. Like if the company relies on them, they'll never make a self-packaging company and be able to get themselves, the freedom, if that makes sense. So I absolutely relate to that. What do you think has been your biggest learning since you've become a business owner?
My biggest learnings have been resilience. So learning resilience, learning to get used to rejection. They do say it's like being punched in the face every day, and you just roll with the punches, or you just get up again and keep going. And that has been my biggest learning, is like how strong that I actually can be when pushed to the limit. You learn your strength, you learn your weaknesses, you learn what you're capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing. And then if you find those, you find someone who is capable of doing it for you. So, and that forms your leadership team and the structure by which you move forward. And I'd like to say that I'm pretty self-aware. So I go through pretty quickly finding what is happening for me, and have a pretty quick refractory period to learn from it.
There's really good points in it. I think it was Mike Tyson's. So we're just getting a bit of feedback. You just turn your across. Thank you. Mike Tyson was one that said, a plant is only as good. Lasts only so long until you get smacked in the face, and it's a really good point. And your point about, I would call it who, not how. So, surrounding yourself with the right people who, and letting them go to balance your strengths, is one of the key tools of any entrepreneur, any founder, in my view. And a good example of that probably is this podcast. The only part of this podcast that I actually take part in is the actual interview. Everything else, the recruitment of you, the workflow to prepare you with the questions, etc., the follow up, post it, all of that is done by other people, because that's just not my strengths. Okay, so when you think of the word successful, who pops to mind, and can you tell me why?
So immediately, who pops to mind is Richard Branson. Very charismatic, very successful. He's an entrepreneur at heart, and he still invests in other entrepreneurial ventures, and then I think about him and I'm like, well, he didn't try and change the world, so why am I?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point, but in some ways he is. So the stuff he's doing with the environment will be, just because he's got that voice. Interesting, thank you. Are you a reader or listen to podcasts? Are there any books, podcasts you'd recommend?
Books that I recommend are actually How to Deal with Politics, and politics in terms of organizational politics. So 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene is one of my favorite books.
Right.
It's written really well. I was an early adopter of it. It's one of the bestsellers now, but it's written really well. So it has 48 laws that it outlines, and then it has the observance of the law and the opposite of the law. And so you get to have both perspectives, and it uses historical references. So a lot of politics and things like that are regarding wars and strategies and like real big strategies. And I just love it. And you got to read it from a perspective of not taking on all the laws, because if you do, you'll become this Machiavellian tyrant. But if you read it from the perspective of understanding what are the potentials and how to navigate them when it comes up. Now, I needed to navigate when I was in Saudi Arabia, because my third manager that came along didn't want a female manager on the team. And I managed to navigate that situation without having any open conflict, anything that you would say is disadvantage to someone in that situation. I managed to actually bounce into a better position, which was managing inventions from the university. And it was all because of the 48 laws of power. So I managed to get him to support my movement, and that it was at the same pay, because originally he's like, you're earning too much money, you're too young. Only people with years and years of experience earn that kind of money. So there was lots of things against me. It was like age and gender and all of these different things. There was like harassment for 8 months, and I navigated that quite successfully.
So can I ask, out of interest, where were you living in Saudi?
I was living in Dawal, which is the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. It was an hour away from Jeddah, one of the main cities in Saudi. And I was one of the founding members of the university. Okay.
No, thank you for that. I mean, I've been travelled with work to Saudi extensively, as you know. And yeah, I think I prefer to be closer to Jeddah personally, but I am a waterman. Okay.
Would have loved Dawal.
Right. Well, I did love Jeddah. It was a beautiful, beautiful city. Okay, my final question. Any last piece of advice or parting words to entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Aspiring entrepreneurs. Okay, so give it a go. Take the risk. Back yourself. Don't set goals that are ridiculous or too high or have too much ambition for what you can actually do with a company. You can, but once you get to Richard Branson status, can you actually influence and do the changes that you might want to see in the world? So just become successful at little bit by little bit, build up, and you'll make it. And roll with the punches.
Great advice. And persevere.
Absolutely.
Amy-Renee, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please leave us a review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, or wherever you watch/listen. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in this topic. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to admin@scaleupgrowth.co. Put "Be a guest" in the subject line and tell me a little about yourself. If you want to gauge where your business growth potential is and identify where the biggest opportunities in your business lie, or where the key needs that you need to concentrate on right now are, take our assessment where you will receive personalised advice for improvement. It's quick and free. Go to scaleupgrowth.scoreapp.com. If you would like to work with me one-to-one, I love coaching and get the best outcomes that way. Send me an email to jonathan@scaleupgrowth.co and put one-to-one in the heading. Tell me a bit about your business and let's see how we can apply a great strategy for your business. So that's it for this week. Tune in next time for more great learnings from a scaling entrepreneur.